Thank you all for joining. We're going to get started here in just a moment. If you haven't done so, please go into the chat, introduce yourself, including where you're from and any affiliation. Hello, and welcome to today's special event on the 8 dimensions of wellness. My name is Paolo Del Vecchio. I'm the director of SAMHSA's Office of Recovery. I'm also a person in long-term recovery myself from addictions, mental health, and trauma. I also identify as a family member. And I want to say today, Happy Recovery Month. This is our 35th annual celebration of September as National Recovery Month. It is a national observance that's held to promote awareness of the power of recovery from mental health and substance use conditions. That celebrates the millions of us, the millions of Americans in recovery, and recognizes our contributions and accomplishments along with our loved ones and allies. Recovery events are celebrated around the nation and around the world. During Recovery Month, SAMHSA's Office of Recovery also applauds the dedication of service providers, states, and communities who champion recovery. Recovery Month is designed to counter stigma and instill hope in the American public that recovery is indeed possible. Next slide, please, is our standard disclosure and disclaimer slide. Next slide, please. A few housekeeping reminders. First, as noted, if you haven't done so yet, please go into the chat and introduce yourself by clicking the chat icon and sending a message to everyone. I also want to highlight here on this slide that if you do have questions for our panelists today, that you do those in the Q&A box and submit those questions in our Q&A box. It just helps with us managing the Q&A portion. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our incredible team within the Office of Recovery that we have here, helping us to convene this event in particular. We're Julie Erickson, Katera Islami Templin, and Donna Dimitrovic. Next slide, please. Celebration of Recovery Month. The Office of Recovery organized a webinar series this month to educate and provide key discussions on many recovery topics. Each week, we will be highlighting a theme for the week. This week, the theme is health, where one can strive to be healthy and achieve our wellness goals. Following weeks will be focused on the other key dimensions of recovery: home, purpose, and community. So today's agenda will include presentation on the 8 dimensions of wellness by Dr. Peggy Swarbrick. We'll hear how these dimensions are put into practice by Ariel Estes, and then we'll end with a presentation about whole health and wellness in the Veterans Administration by Dr. Benjamin Kliegler, where then after their remarks, we'll go into questions and answers and before we close. Next slide, please. Office of Recovery is charged with advancing recovery across the nation in partnership with people with lived experience, our families and communities impacted by mental health and addictions conditions. Next slide, please, lists our key goals within the Office of Recovery. Those are inclusion, equity, peer services, social determinants, and wellness. And I'll note we have a whole series of activities that are in alignment with these particular goals. Certainly, this particular session is all focused on wellness. Next slide, please. Does say a little bit more about the Office of Recovery and the activities that we are engaged with. We'll note that most of the staff within the Office of Recovery are individuals with lived experience. Next slide, please. So noted before, the weekly themes of health, home, purpose, and community. And then in partnership with our Office of Communications, we've recently released a Recovery Month toolkit for 2024. That toolkit includes, among other things, social media, shareables, and backgrounds. And you can go and find out more about, download that toolkit at the URL, the website that's on the slide here. Next slide, please. So today, as noted, today kicks off our webinar series as we begin Recovery Month. You can go to our Recovery Month event page on our website at this URL where you can find the full range of events that are happening during the month. Please go there and register. We have major events happening during the month, including our Walk for Recovery, which is set for September the 5th in downtown Washington, D.C. In just a few days. We're excited about that. We've included in the chat how you can register for that event. We hope to have hundreds on the mall raising awareness about the power of recovery. Next slide, please. Also shows our Art of Recovery initiative. And so also on September the 5th, we'll be releasing our Gallery of Hope, which is a compilation of over 300 pieces of artwork that were submitted this year by artists in recovery to show the connection between art and recovery, how it can be used as a tool for healing and raise awareness about the power of recovery. Our Gallery of Hope, again, will also be launched this Thursday, September the 5th. Next slide, please. Our other major activity during the month is our STAR Awards, SAMHSA Trailblazers in Advancing Recovery. And this is a first, our first ever STAR Awards to recognize recovery champions from across the nation. This event will be happening September the 24th from 1 to 3:30 in downtown Washington, D.C., but we'll also be live streaming the event at this link right here so that people across the nation can view our first annual STAR Awards. Also note, just back to the Walk for Recovery for a second, that event also will be streamed. Stay tuned for the link and we'll put that in the chat as well. Next slide, please, describes a little bit more about the Spark, which is one of our major technical assistance centers focused on advancing recovery. I encourage you to go there if you need help in terms of expanding recovery support services, particularly for underserved and underrepresented populations. Next slide. My pleasure. Just time to introduce our presenters for the 8 Dimensions of Wellness today, starting with Dr. Peggy Swarbrick. Dr. Swarbrick is a research professor in the Rutgers Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology. She is also the director of Scarlett Well and associate director of the Center of Alcohol and Substance Use Studies. Dr. Swarbrick has worked for over 26 years at the Collaborative Support Programs of New Jersey's Wellness Institute as their director. She has over decades developed the 8-dimensional wellness model that has been used from various populations as a strength-based approach for whole health recovery and wellness. Dr. Swarbrick has made significant contributions to the body of literature in occupational therapy, nursing, and community behavioral health practice, focused on such topics as wellness, wellness coaching, peer support, financial wellness, employment, and professional self-care. She's created self-care wellness programs for people in recovery, for caregivers, families, youth, and healthcare professionals, and educators to prevent burnout. Our second presenter will be Ariel Estes. Ms. Estes is a peer support specialist with Rutgers UBHC Intensive Recovery Treatment Support Program and an advocate for moms and pregnant individuals utilizing medications for opioid use disorders, or also known as medication-assisted treatment, through a program called Moms on MAT Support, which is an initiative to support women who are pregnant. She draws on her own experiences with substances, incarceration, pregnancy, and MAT, and she offers hope and guidance to those navigating similar challenges and hopes to inspire others to find their own path to recovery and wellness. She's also co-author and co-produced Journey to Wellness Guide, is an active member of the Rutgers Center of Alcohol and Substance Use Studies Advisory Board, and a member of the NIH HEAL Initiative, HEAL Connections Lived Experience panel. Our final panelist today is Dr. Benjamin Kliegler. He is a board-certified family physician who's been working as a clinician, educator, researcher, and administrative leader in the field of complementary and integrative medicine for the past 25 years. May 2016, he was named National Director of the Integrative Health Coordinating Center in the Office of Patient-Centered and Cultural Transformation, as well as the Director of Education and Research for Whole Health within the Veterans Health Administration. In May 2020, Dr. Kliegler was named the Executive Director, in fact, of the Office of Patient-Centered Care and Cultural Transformation. He's also Professor of Family and Community Medicine at Icahn Mount Sinai School of Medicine. We're excited to have all three of our panelists here with us today. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Peggy Swarbrick to get us started. Peggy, over to you.
That's cool. Thank you. It's really great to be here. I'm gonna put this on the screen here. Let's see. Oops, nope, I've got the wrong thing on the screen here. I got the wrong thing up here. Trying to share the screen here with you. Well, thank you very much, Paolo. Thank you everyone for inviting us to kind of share today. Is it coming up on the screen here? Oh boy. Sorry.
It was for a moment, Peggy. We could see your screen.
You could see the PowerPoint though, just to make sure you have the PowerPoint here. Okay. Oh boy. Sorry about that. But it's not up there, is it?
No, try clicking from current slide.
Let's see okay, you could see it now. Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so we will, yeah, now it's okay. Yep.
I don't see it at the moment.
No. Okay, yeah. No, okay. Maybe you guys can, is it okay now?
No, not seeing it.
Okay, maybe I could, maybe one of you, maybe to put it up there now. Hold on a minute.
Sure.
Hold on a minute. Okay, let me see. Wait, one more. Okay. So thanks so much. And so I'm really here, so we can move to the next slide. Sorry about that. Really excited to share about, really going to provide you an overview of the 8 dimensions, give you a little bit of a history of how they've evolved and how they've really been moving into, been very useful in many spaces, particularly for people with behavioral health and mental health and substance use challenges initially, but seeing across the lifespan, people using this model. And I'm going to share a little bit about that evolution, go over some of the definitions, but then just share some really great resources that you you could use yourself, you could share with your families, people you support, just to kind of see what kind of a range of resources are available to help us understand wellness and recovery, particularly this wellness model. Where does it fit in terms of recovery? I think Paolo mentioned the health, home, community, and purpose. And when we think about health, and we think about recovery principles, where wellness really comes into play, a big piece, again, it's person-centered in a way, but the holistic focus, the 8 areas of wellness we're going to walk through. And in the next slide, you'll see that it just really highlights the different dimensions that come about wellness. When I think about wellness and defining wellness, one thing we want to remember, it's very personally defined. But if we do hit the thing, you'll see it's the 8 dimensions, right? What I'm going to do is walk us around just for a minute, this area when we think about that, what do we mean by the 8 dimensions and how does it show up in our life? The dimensions were designed to help us think about a way to view ourselves. We see ourselves as well, physically, spiritually, socially, intellectually, occupationally, environmentally. Think about ourselves and what do we need in each area and what we're doing. So what I'm going to tell you a little bit about as we walk through the wheel is how it shows up in my life or other people's. So the physical dimension, right, is the things that we think about, physically well. What am I doing each day? Because sometimes we think wellness, going to a spa, eating carrots, it's this thing that's happened sometimes, but wellness is really happening every day. So physically, when we think about physically wellness and what we're doing physical, sleeping, things like that, when we're thinking about what I do, sleeping, moving, hydrating myself, these are things I do each day that really help me in my wellness. And then we can see about how it often affects the other areas. When we look at the next dimension over there on the screen, and we think about the intellectual wellness, when we heard about the arts, a lot of people find the arts, doing creative kind of arts, being with our hobbies, learning more things, showing up to an event like today, you're doing something with your intellectual wellness. When we think about intellectual wellness, it's not only just the degree I attained or things, those can really help us in a way, but what are we doing each day to learn more about taking care of our mental health, our substance use, our stress in life? What are we doing to help ourselves in that way? So intellectually, expanding our knowledge, sharing our knowledge, building our knowledge. When we think about the next dimension, which we move to, of this emotional, thinking about really our ways we express our emotions. What are the things we do each day? For me, thinking about emotional wellness, who am I connecting with and talking to kind of share things with, have a person I can reach out to if I'm feeling stressed, having that connection to people, reaching out and doing the work we do in our workplace. We're doing a lot for our social dimension just by being around people or reaching out to people, finding those relationships, keeping those connections, and also perhaps giving and getting support, which is such an essential piece of our wellness. The next dimension, and I want you to be thinking of yourself, what did you do each day? Because you probably could be listing in the chat what you did today for that dimension. Financial dimension, that's one when we think about, many people find the stress of that, the stress of finances, but each day, what are we doing? Am I watching my spending triggers? Am I aware of my budget? Am I making a budget? Am I taking an account of what I'm spending, being aware of, again, wellness being a conscious, deliberate process where I'm aware of what I'm doing, that can contribute to our wellness, resisting a spending trigger, keeping within our budget, maybe planning for the future and thinking about how we can maybe increase our income or increase our assets in our life. So financial wellness is a big one. And this is one that we see people, again, say have a lot of problems with poverty, and that we see people that are having limited means. One of the things I want to share with you later is we have curriculum where we actually have developed a very strong curriculum on building financial wellness to help people who even are in not of high income, high means, that can develop that approach to seeing their financial wellness, building it, again, how it affects the other dimensions. The next dimension when we think about is social, the social piece. This is, that giving support, getting support, reaching out to others, thinking about so many things that we do in our life to just giving support and getting support and feeling like we belong, because that's one of the things that many people find, isolation, loneliness, that's a really big challenge for many of us. So what are we doing to kind of make those connections, keep those connections, doing things in our life that day to day, that we are maintaining social connections, and perhaps if we desire to build some social connections. The next dimension, when we think about the spiritual one, again, for many people, this is, again, that sense of purpose and meaning in life. What are we doing each day that aligns with our purpose and meaning? And what are we doing in terms of the things that we do? And for many people, this could be some type of reflective practice at certain intervals during the day. It could be connected to some kind of groups or volunteerism. It can be doing things with some kind of our religious or spiritual practices. But again, spirituality is so, and like all of these dimensions, is very, very personally defined. But if you really take an assessment, and we'll put into the chat a survey you can go look at, you're probably doing a lot in all of the dimensions, again, even in the spiritual, what are you doing that's connecting to what you value, believe, and keeps that sense of centeredness for ourselves. Occupational is kind of similar, but the way we were defined occupational, we think about the different roles we have. We may be a worker, a student, we may be a caregiver, part of a community. Are we satisfied with that? Are we feeling enriched by what we're doing in those roles? Are we having balance in those roles? That's one of the things that we see a lot of my work with caregivers, are people feeling the imbalances of them. So again, what are we doing? Do we have activities each day in our work or in our school or in a caregivers, doing those things each day? And then our level of satisfaction and how fulfilling that is. Those are part of our occupational dimensions. And in retirement, you have an occupational role. You're doing something. And so, again, it doesn't just be working. Working is a piece of it. And perhaps there's these other components of occupational wellness we want to remember. And finally, environmental wellness, thinking about the environments, the living, the learning, the working environments that we're in. How are we satisfied with them? How are we safe in them? How do we occupy them? Sometimes we don't have control. One of the things about the wellness model, I talk about the ABCs. It's about our attitude, the balance, and control. We don't always have control over those, but am I able to do things in the environments where I live, learn, and work that I have control? Like I put myself, make attention to the kind of images in my environment that can be positive, especially in places that I'm there a long time in the day. Positive messages, going outside, a lot of good evidence to show being outdoors, being in nature, being even outside, being outside in environments can help us. So the wellness dimensions may be this is probably, many of you know about them, you've seen them. There's a mistake on the top one description about physical. I apologize in this thing. We'll get you a better one that will tell you what physical is correctly. It was a cut and paste problem, I'm sorry. But I do want to help you, to remind you that you can look at these dimensions and look at the next slide. You can see that we have it's a conscious, deliberate process where we become aware of and make that choices. It's, we can have stress, but we can have wellness. We can have illness, we can have wellness. And sometimes people think, well, people can't think about wellness. They're under too much stress. But that's the time for us to. It's not the absence of disease. It's that presence. And that's each day we make choices. So the next slide will highlight for you an inventory that I'm really excited to you, because again, I developed this model personally. Why I'm here today, this model helped me decades ago with my own personal life, and I brought it into my work, and it's evolved. So you've seen the evolution. This tool here is a demonstration of an evolution of another tool that we've been using for another about 15 years. And we finally developed an inventory where it's smaller, where you can rate yourself on the different areas, and it's validated. We just finished a very large validation study. You can go in there and it just prompts you to think, similar to what I just did by walking through, what am I doing? And the idea is, what do I want to strengthen? Because I'm doing something already. And that's what we forget about. Sometimes we forget everything's about the problem, isolating the problem, identifying the diagnosis, treating the diagnosis. But as a person, we want to know that we have strengths. We have these facets of ourselves that we can make strong. Many times my emotional dimension is a little bit out of balance, or I'm feeling socially out of balance, but I can activate my other things that I'm doing in the other dimensions to help me keep that balance and help me to keep moving forward in my recovery. So this is a tool. We encourage you to, take a look at it. It's available up there. Check. It asks you to think about in the last 30 days, how true is this statement for you? It was developed based on the next tool that I'm going to share here, which are resources again. Oh, to the left, you'll see, and it's in English and Spanish. Thankfully, we just recently were able to translate this. This is a nice similar type of a tool to the inventory, but it's a little more open. Over the years, as we have introduced the wellness model 15, 20 years ago, we started to do a lot of self-help booklets, self-help workshops. So this is the updated version of the updated version of being a tool that just gives you a way to prompt your thinking about what you're doing, and then help you think about the words are what do I want to strengthen? What do I want to improve? Not what I want to change. Change is hard. What do I want to strengthen from what I'm doing already? Remind us. And then what can I improve for myself? Much easier than to put on ourselves than that pressure of changing or doing something. Transformation of change is hard, but building on what we're doing and strengthening what's already working is really important. So that's another tool. You can access this one here. We'll be putting these in the website. You can access them. They're all free and downloadable. And this tool is very, very popular for many people to use in groups, individually. You can use it with peer support programs. Peer providers use it. The next tool I'll share also is part of what we call Words of Wellness. This was also a piece that really made wellness popular back in about 2008 when I started to release this. You can access this, and it's providing messages around the different dimensions. So you can access that, but I encourage you to develop your own, because that's one of the things that I'm very strong about is wellness model is really good for us individually, but then collectively in our own local places and spaces, we might want to customize or tailor it to our local group. So encouraging you to think about sharing your words of wellness if you're working somewhere, or you want to receive a copy of this, reach out to us. But people find it's really nice to get a message of wellness. Yeah, the password, just email from the one on CSP. There's a way you ask for that, and Chelsea will get it to you at CSP, that one there. So the Words of Wellness is one tool. And then the next one I want to share as a resource of things we've been sharing over the decades is this solution suite. And we're going to give you a whole, I'm working with Judith Cook over at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and we created the solution suite for health and recovery. And I'm just giving you a few examples of the many tools that are free, downloadable resources that go into many of the different dimensions. So basically you could go in there. There's a podcast about it, a description, and a downloadable PDF file around a journaling guide that we have, a wellness activity manual. We have wellness activities for work, and an enhancing immune health, which is really important now as we go into the cold and flu season. The immune health curriculum would be very helpful for us to think about how we can strengthen our wellness dimensions using immune health. The next slide, later on, there's another slide that gives you a little more. The final, one of the more final things I'll share of the two last things is the Journey to Wellness Guide. And my colleague, who you're going to hear from in a minute, was a co-developer of this. This is a new guide that we developed just recently. Oh, again, this is on the Rutgers Alcohol and Substance Use Studies website. It's a nice tool to kind of focus on your wellness, but then highlighting 4 areas to look at: unplugging, do good, connecting, and sleep. It's a nice guide to use yourself. We actually piloted it with case managers and peer providers in New Jersey and Michigan. And we then they used it with people they were supporting. So we have some modest evidence that it's helpful for people to share a guide like this as a self-help wellness tool. The final, the other pieces that we have at Rutgers, a new thing that I'm involved in is at Rutgers University. We have a project called Scarlet Well. I'm just recently been moved over as the Scarlet Well director half-time. And it's a whole initiative to spread the 8 dimensions across students, faculty, and staff. Not, I mean, it's for students, but faculty and staff. So it's a really nice way that we're focusing on our whole community. Next slide gives you a little bit more about some of the things on our website there. There's a lot of resources around the different dimensions that I just went over. You can access there. They're all for students, for staff, faculty. And then the next slide will show you some other things we have there. Again, we have the inventory there, and we share the guide to wellness, the Journey to Wellness guide for those. So nice way to see where wellness in the 8 dimensions is showing up, not only in behavioral health, but in college campuses and other areas. The next piece, again, there'll be another Scarlet. The final thing I'm going to tell you about, it, which is so exciting, is working with my colleague, Alex Gamble, and he worked with a colleague from Rochester, Cooper Harris. where they basically love the 8 dimensions, and they were able to work on adapting a model. You can see the 8 dimensions there. They developed this model by and with coaches at a basketball camp in New York City this summer. They did a project where they worked together to go through with those 75 coaches to see how does wellness show up in their work as basketball coaches in sports. And so Alex is working on a project to really bring the wellness model to basketball, to sports, for youth and young adults. So again, I showed you a lot of resources of the different areas where wellness in the 8th dimension has been, where it's going. So this is just a new and exciting direction, and so many more, working with professionals as well. The last slide I think I have there as well is just one of the ones to the Integrated Health and Mental Health Solution Suite. It gives you another link to that. So I just really was here to tell you again, probably what you know, the 8 dimensions, but how to start to think about each day you are doing something and reminding ourselves to use the lens. I see it as a kaleidoscope, like you saw, to focus on one of those areas for ourselves each day, and perhaps then strengthening or improving an area if we want, or just acknowledging that we're doing something. So I'm really glad to be sharing this. A lot of the things will be shared in the, have been shared with you. Looking forward to having any questions. And I'm really excited to introduce my colleague, Ariel, who you've heard about her, and she's going to tell you about putting the model into practice personally and professionally.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ariel Estes, and I am a person in recovery, and I aim to serve the populations that I identify strongly with and have lived experience with. I'm going to be talking to you today on how I use wellness for myself personally and how I use wellness in my line of work as a peer support specialist. So just as my recovery has not been a linear journey, neither has my pursuit of wellness been straightforward. I've applied the 8 dimensions of wellness model in various ways throughout my life, maybe sometimes unaware of that I was even doing so. During periods of problematic substance use, wellness for me centered on basic self-care, remembering to eat, trying to stay hydrated if I remembered, and trying to ensure I got a restful night's sleep. This focus on physical wellness helped maintain my body's health and functioning. This shows the importance of caring for oneself to ensure overall well-being. Emotionally, prioritizing these basic needs during challenging times reflected my commitment to self-care and emotional resilience. This connection between physical and emotional wellness shows how one dimension supports the other. Although not directly related to work, maintaining basic self-care during difficult periods can also be viewed as balancing the work of living and surviving, which ties into occupational wellness in a broader sense. As of today, my approach to wellness has transformed profoundly, reflecting the power and adaptability of the 8 dimensions of wellness. This models the uniqueness of each individual, helping us to harness our strengths and address our needs in ways that follow us to live each day with intention and fulfillment. I now make wellness a top priority by embracing small positive actions in my life every day. Today, my physical wellness includes balanced nutrition, eating a variety of nutrient-rich foods, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains to support overall health and energy levels. This has actually became kind of a game for me with how many different colors of foods I could see on my plate. Adequate hydration, drinking enough water throughout the day to maintain hydration. I have what I call my wellness water cup. Don't laugh, but I do have one that I carry around with me because I forget to drink water. So I need that constant reminder to drink enough during the day. Stress management, using techniques such as deep breathing and meditation, manage and reduce stress levels. This is something I practice every day, even if for 5 minutes. Today, my intellectual wellness includes lifelong learning. I enrolled back in college, attend workshops, and take online in-person classes to acquire new skills and knowledge. Reading and research, which is a huge one for me. I love reading books, articles, and academic journals to stay informed and challenge my thinking. And professional development, I attend conferences, networking events, and pursue certifications that enhance my expertise and career growth. Today, my emotional wellness includes setting boundaries, learning to set and maintain healthy boundaries to protect my emotional health and avoid burnout or overwhelm. This can mean unplugging my laptop after a workday or simply just shutting off my phone. Today, my emotional wellness also includes self-compassion, practicing kindness and understanding towards myself, especially during difficult times, to build emotional resilience and self-acceptance. And seeking support, reaching out to my support groups, mentors, friends, or family for encouragement and understanding when dealing with emotional difficulties. My financial wellness looks today like budgeting, creating and sticking to a budget that outlines my income and expenses, helping me manage my money more effectively and avoid overspending. Financial literacy, educating myself about financial concepts such as interest rates, investment options, and tax implications to make informed decisions about my finances. And retirement savings, which I'm absolutely blessed to be able to contribute to, contributing to retirement accounts to ensure that I have adequate savings for my retirement years. My social wellness includes practicing empathy, understanding and sharing the feelings of others, showing compassion and actively listening to their experiences and perspectives, balancing social interactions, finding a balance between socializing and spending time alone to ensure that I maintain healthy relationships without feeling overwhelmed. And to do that, I do that by creating healthy boundaries, setting and respecting personal boundaries in relationships to maintain balance and ensure mutual respect and understanding. My spiritual wellness includes gratitude practices. I spend a few quiet moments each morning before my kids wake up, before my husband wakes up, and I just sit there and I regularly acknowledge and express gratitude for the positive aspects of my life. It's easy to get wrapped up in the negative, so I make it a daily action to focus on the positive and to keep in the present moment. Sometimes I need to stop to do this multiple times throughout the day. I practice forgiveness, embracing forgiveness for myself and others, which has led to emotional healing and spiritual growth. For my occupational wellness, work-life balance, manage my time effectively to balance work responsibilities with my personal life, ensuring neither is neglected. Sometimes this is also not easy, but I make it a point to incorporate it. Personal growth, I am seeking opportunities for growth and advancement within my career, such as taking on new responsibilities or exploring different roles. For my environmental wellness, a clean living space as much as I can with 2 small children, keeping my home clean and organized to promote a health and stress-free environment. My family and I work together on this, even if it means just picking up after ourselves. Healthy work environment, creating a comfortable workspace to reduce stress and enhance productivity. It's important to note that wellness doesn't have to be complicated. It's about making mindful choices each day that nurture your well-being and positively impact those around you. As I continue this journey, I remain committed to these daily actions, knowing they contribute to a life of balance, connection, and purpose. So next slide. So this is how I use wellness in my work as a peer supporter with mothers and pregnant individuals on MAT or medication for opioid use disorder and people transitioning from incarceration. Incorporating the 8 dimensions of wellness into pregnancy can significantly enhance the well-being of both the expectant individual and the developing child, leading to a healthier and more fulfilling pregnancy experience. For mothers, applying this model can similarly improve the well-being of the mother and her child. In my role as a peer supporter, the way I use the wellness model with pregnant individuals and mothers can vary from how it's applied for those transitioning to society after incarceration. It's crucial to remember that wellness is highly individualized and can look different for everyone. For mothers, I advocate for starting with small, actionable steps and setting clear intentions, such as, today I will go for a walk. Today I will meditate for 5 minutes. Today I will attend a doctor's appointment, rather than vague commitments like, I'll try to go for a walk today. I'll try to meditate for 5 minutes, etc. This approach helps create a solid foundation for both wellness and personal growth. In terms of physical wellness, this can involve maintaining a healthy body through exercise, balanced nutrition, and regular medical care. For pregnant individuals and mothers, This might mean taking a 10-minute walk to the park with your child or yourself, eating a more nutritious diet, and attending prenatal or wellness checkups. Emotional wellness involves managing and addressing a range of emotions that pregnancy and motherhood can bring, from joy to anxiety to sadness to fear. Techniques such as mindfulness, meditation, engaging with a counselor, peer, or support group can significantly enhance emotional well-being. For intellectual wellness, I always encourage ongoing learning, whether through classes, books, or research. For pregnant individuals and mothers on a medication for opioid use disorder, educating themselves about childbirth and parenting can be very empowering. This knowledge boosts confidence and helps participants advocate for themselves, whether that would be in a hospital setting or at home, and supports informed decision-making. For social wellness, which is personally my favorite dimension, it's about developing a strong sense of connection, belonging, and a well-rounded support system. For pregnant individuals and mothers, this means actively seeking out and nurturing relationship with friends, family, and other parents. As a peer, I encourage my participants to join local parenting groups or online support communities where they can share experiences, seek advice, and offer support to one another. I might be biased because this aspect of wellness was incredibly influential for me and for others that I've worked with, but its impact cannot be overstated. Now I'm going to flip the script, change the slide, and talk about my participants transitioning from incarceration. The 8 dimensions of wellness can be particularly beneficial for individuals reentering society after being incarcerated. So environmental wellness, in my opinion, is essential for a successful transition, as it emphasizes creating a stable and safe living environment for individuals reentering society. Establishing a secure and supporting living space can greatly reduce stress and enhance overall well-being. Access to clean, safe housing and a peaceful neighborhood offers a sense of stability and security, which is critical during the transition time. As a peer supporter, I provide linkages to recovery houses or halfway houses, if that's what they choose, to assist in this process. This is not always an easy process, as many individuals are experiencing lack of housing. Financial wellness is a critical component of successful reentry, as it involves effectively managing financial resources, a challenge many individuals face after release. Upon reentries, individuals often encounter financial hurdles such as securing housing, paying off debts, fines, fees, and finding stable employment. Developing financial literacy and budgeting skills can play a significant role in reducing stress and fostering a self-sufficiency during this transition. For instance, I educate my participants on how to create and stick to a budget. This can help individuals prioritize essential expenses such as rent and utilities and avoid accumulating further debt. Access to financial counseling, reentry programs, and support programs can also be invaluable. By helping individuals equip themselves with these tools, individuals can better navigate the financial challenges of reentry and build a foundation for a more secure and independent life. For spiritual wellness, I often see individuals seeking a sense of meaning and purpose in life after incarceration. This search can become a powerful source of hope and motivation as they would work to rebuild their lives. Engaging in spiritual practices such as prayer or volunteer community service can provide comfort and guidance during this journey. I sometimes encourage my participants to spend time outdoors with nature, stay present in the moment, or journal as a way to nurture their spiritual well-being. Occupational wellness plays an important role in the reentry process, as it involves finding satisfaction and fulfillment in work or daily activities. For individuals reintegrating into society after incarceration, securing employment is often a key factor in reducing recidivism rates and achieving successful reentry. I know this because I'm living proof of that. Meaningful employment offers not only financial stability, but also a sense of purpose and a positive routine that can greatly enhance overall well-being. As a peer, I provide linkages to job trainings, reentry programs, and career counseling, as it's essential in helping individuals find and maintain satisfying employment, further supporting their journey towards a stable and fulfilling life. As a peer supporter, my goal is to guide and encourage each person on their own unique path, whatever that might look like for them, and help them to harness the power of wellness in transforming their lives. I have found it useful to incorporate the 8 dimensions of wellness, not only for my daily life, but in my work helping others. It is a holistic approach to help people focus on their strengths and capabilities, despite the challenges they face. This model provides a flexible framework that can be tailored to meet diverse needs. By focusing on small actionable steps and setting clear intentions and utilizing available resources, individuals can build a solid foundation for personal growth and stability. The 8 dimensions of wellness empower individuals to take control of their health, nurture their emotional and social connections, and create a life filled with purpose and fulfillment. Thank you, guys. I'm going to hand this off to Dr. Ben Klieger, and who has really amazing things to say. Take it away, Ben.
Thank you, Ariel. And thank you for sharing that. You know, I think goes without saying probably for this audience that all the professionals in the world can't really speak to this in any way as effectively as the person who is actually making it real in their life every day. So thank you. And I sympathize with the keeping a house clean with 2 kids thing, although thankfully, not thankfully, but mine are keeping their own houses clean now. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I think hearing the 2 presentations before, I just see so much overlap with what we're doing in the VA. And I think as you'll see, I think when you see my slides, it really speaks to how this concept of well-being and wellness and just whole personness is just really where it's at. And obviously SAMHSA and the recovery community have been there for a long time, but I think what's happening is the rest of healthcare is now gradually kind of catching up and coming along. So next slide, please. So in the VA, we call this whole health. And here's your definition. And you can kind of see from the bolded words that how much this has in common with the recovery approach and with everything that both Peggy and Ariel are speaking to, an approach to care that empowers and equips people to take charge of their health and well-being. And we like to say it goes beyond just what's the matter with you, which is where healthcare overall has been focused forever, or at least in the last 50 to 100 years, and really thinks about what matters to you. What is the point of making these changes, taking these medications, doing this work that we're asking you to do? So this is an approach that we're trying to spread across the VA and having some really great success. Next slide. This is what we call the whole health system. So this is how we're spreading this across the VA. And for people who don't know, VA, Veterans Health Administration, is a huge system. It's the largest federal unified health system in the country. Has 140 medical centers, 400,000 staff, 6 million active veteran patients. So it's a pretty big undertaking, but we're making great progress. So this is the model of health and healthcare delivery that we're trying to push forward. It's got 3 kind of pillars. The pathway is really the work that Ariel is doing as a peer counselor, not that she's doing it in the VA, but it's the same concept, and obviously a concept that's been key to recovery for a long time. Trained veterans who work with their fellow veterans, basically to have this conversation. What's important to you? What matters to you? What's going to motivate you to move forward with your well-being? And that can happen in group setting with other veterans, happens individually. A lot of it happens virtually now and online. Well-being programs are where that whole thing about getting equipped to get closer to what matters to you. So they may work with a whole health coach. They might take a nutrition class, an exercise class, or they might have access to some of the complementary integrative approaches that we're offering in VA, which you can see on the left there. In particular, we put a lot of stress on the approaches that people can learn to do for themselves to really transform their own lives, things like yoga, Tai Chi, meditation. And then the third part is really, in some ways, the hardest, which is working to transform the care that people get from their primary care people, from their mental health, their pain people, et cetera, so that all those professions are really thinking about what's important to this person and how do I work that into my treatment plan. Next slide. As you can see, we have a circle of health, which is that circle on the left. And if you can read those little circles, you'll see how much overlap there really is with the model, the SAMHSA model that Peggy presented really, you know, things like power of the mind, spirit and soul, friends and family, in terms of social well-being, surroundings, in terms of environmental well-being, personal development. All these things are really very explicitly crossing over. And then something that we've really added that we think is really important is this idea that we also have to bring into the conversation about well-being these social and structural determinants or drivers of health. And this goes to what Ariel was saying in her work with incarcerated folks and et cetera, with folks with substance use issues. We've really got to know what social drivers of health are getting in the way of people moving forward. Are you having food insecurity? Are you having difficulty in your workplace because there's racism or gender discrimination? Do you have stable housing? So we're trying to make this whole health approach, this whole person approach, really engaged with a bigger picture of social drivers of health as well, which is not something healthcare in general as an industry has been so great about doing, although there's movement in the right direction. Next slide. So in VA, for me, some unbelievable luck and vision from our leaders, this has really entered into mainstream of what VA is doing. This is the VA Department of Veterans Affairs strategic plan, and it says right there in front of you, empowers employees to deliver high quality whole health that equips veterans and supports their health and well-being. And this may not seem like much, but if you work for the federal government, our SAMHSA colleagues can attest, that strategic plan ends up not just sitting on a shelf, but being a real driver for what you're held accountable to, what you're measured against. And so this has made a huge difference that VA leadership has seen the opportunity to put this in the plan for what the department is trying to do. Next slide. We've also had the good fortune that our current undersecretary, so the Undersecretary for Health runs the health part of VA, and this is Dr. Sharif El-Nahal, who's really made this a big priority and sort of identified it as something that really distinguishes the VA from just a healthcare system, that we're all about supporting veterans' whole health. Next slide. And what this has led to is really an unbelievable growth in how many veterans are using whole health. So this last slide on the right shows you that orange bar is the proportion of the active VA users among veterans that actually had some kind of engagement with whole health over the last fiscal year. This was F23, and it was 29% of veterans. That was 1.8 million. Now this year, we're just getting the numbers in, but we're up over 40% of veterans who are at least having one or more conversations with their team about this whole person or whole health, or you might as well just say recovery-oriented approach to care. This is really getting into the mainstream of VA care. Next slide. Now, I don't want to sound like it's all done. There may be veterans on this call who are thinking, well, I went to my VA, nobody talked about whole health. Like I said before, massive system. This is a big change in helping people rethink how they deal with the whole person. And so there's still tons and tons of work to do. There's still many VAs where this has not really entered the mainstream. I'm kind of showing you the national picture. But if you're a veteran out there or you work for the VA and you're like, oh, this guy's full of, you know what, just be patient. We're coming. We're spreading this program all across the VA, and there's a lot of veteran support and a lot of staff support. Part of why is because we've been really tracking the impact of doing these whole health approaches with veterans. And I'm not going to go into detail. Each one of these is kind of a whole study that our research colleagues have done, but I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights. So we've been able to show that veterans who are using whole health, meaning going to see a coach, working with a peer partner, going to the complementary integrative health approaches. Veterans who use whole health, especially people that have 8 or more visits in a year, have been able to decrease their opioid dose much more successfully than people who aren't using whole health. Now, this is not proof, because it could be the people who are ready to do whole health were also ready to drop their opioid dose. So I don't want to make claims that we can't support. But at the same time, that's a pretty impressive kind of outcome associated for veterans who are doing whole health. We see a lot of other things. People are more successful in avoiding painful procedures like back surgery or epidural injection if they have low back pain. People are more successful in actually engaging in psychotherapy for PTSD and other mental health issues. So there's something about doing whole health and learning some of these skills that helps people actually stick it out with the conventional, difficult approach to psychotherapy. There's some evidence now that we have higher tobacco quit rates in people who are using whole health coaching, meditation, and acupuncture. And then we're just seeing overall a big improvement in a lot of the quality metrics that people look at, like rates of cancer screening, rates of vaccination, et cetera. All of this is because, what we think anyway, is all of this is because veterans who are ready to be more engaged with their care, more taking charge of their care, more like in the recovery mode where you're the person and you're charting the course of your life, the way Ariel was talking about, we think that whole health is really facilitating that it's really supporting people in making those changes, getting more engaged in their healthcare, and that's why we're seeing some of these outcomes. Next slide. So I want to just jump over to one other topic that I think is really important, because this is an area we've been really working in, and I think it probably goes to some of what Peggy was talking about. How do we measure whether we're being successful in supporting people's whole health? So we can look at their smoking quit rates, we can look at their opioid dose, but what we're really about is helping people get closer to what matters to them in life. And this chart shows a study that looked at people who had a low sense of purpose in life, who didn't have a sense of meaning or something that really mattered in their life when they were age 50. If you track those people out, they have 2.4 times the risk of early mortality when you compare them with people with a high sense of purpose in life. But in healthcare, now in recovery circles, of course, this is a huge part of what you work on. In healthcare in general, this is not something we talk about. I'm a primary care doctor. I was not trained to say to people, what's most important in your life? What's the purpose in your life? And how can we get you reconnected if you don't have it? But we think we have to do that. And the whole health system actually is set up to enable us to do that. Next slide. So a big challenge is, how are we going to tell that we're being successful? And so we're actually trying to push forward in the VA a new measurement tool. It's called the Wellbeing Sign tool. We're also talking to a lot of different people in different parts of the government. There's a lot of interest in this idea. What this does, it's meant to be asked at your primary care visit or your mental health visit. Think about the most important thing you do in your life. I'm not telling you what it is. You tell me what it is. So what matters most to you in your life? Now think about the last month. 0 to 10 scale. How satisfied were you? How involved were you? And how well were you functioning in relationship to whatever it is? Maybe it's your job, maybe it's taking care of your family, maybe it's your golf game, whatever it is. How are you doing with that? And you get a number out of this. And so then if your goal is to help people get closer to what's important to them, help them function better, well, you can track this over time and you can see if they move in the right direction. So we're pushing this out in VA. We're pretty early in this, but we're hoping this will give us a lot of data about, well, what strategies actually work? What difference does it make if you see a coach, or if you learn meditation, or if you learn yoga? What difference does it make if you're in a healthcare team that's really embracing this with you? So we're hoping that this sets us up to really track how successful we're being in helping people reconnect with their purpose. Next slide. So I just want to share a resource. I think we put this in the link. That's actually out of date, that 141 videos. This is a self-care tool. I hope everybody on here will take a minute and go look at this. Just Google #LiveWholeHealth. We started this during the pandemic when the VA leadership asked us to make sure that veterans could still access some of these complementary integrative health approaches, even though they couldn't come into the office. And it's just grown and grown and grown from there. These are mostly videos made by VA staff from all around the country. Some of them are made by veterans. They're anywhere from 3 minutes to 15 or 20 minutes. You can learn skills. You can listen to a guided imagery. You can learn how to do acupressure points. You can listen to sort of spiritual meditations. And this is open to everybody. And I think everybody who works in a recovery setting, you should take a look at this, because there's resources on here that your people you're working with are really going to benefit from. And also for us as healthcare givers, I think there's just a lot of stuff here to help us take care of ourselves. So hashtag live whole health. Please go take a look. Next slide. Just to wrap it up, this is a quote from a woman veteran, gets her care in St. Louis. I used to drive over the Mississippi River Bridge to Jefferson Barracks, VA, think about jumping every time. The whole health system has helped me explore my purpose, find ways to use nutrition to reduce my pain, and use iRest and Tai Chi. iRest is a kind of yoga, and Tai Chi to get moving again. Now I drive over that bridge and think about tomorrow, and I have hope. And I just love this quote because it sums up, that whole idea of empowering and equipping. So the nutrition, the yoga, these are things that equip somebody. But really the core of this is, how do you get close to what gives you hope in life? And I know from just my own experience working with folks in recovery and friends and family, that whole thing of what is it that gives meaning to you every day? What is it that makes you want to keep going? That's where we're trying to be with whole health. And I think it's just a really has a lot of great potential for making healthcare more relevant to people, kind of making this wellness model that Peggy was talking about, just making this real when we go engage with our healthcare. So I believe that's my last slide, and I think I'm handing it back to Katira for questions and answers. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kliegler, and to Ariel and Dr. Swarbrick for the wonderful presentation on the 8 dimensions of wellness and whole health and well-being, and all the work you all do. It's incredible. So we're transitioning now into our Q&A session. This session will last for around 25 minutes. And this is an opportunity for our participants to ask questions, share your thoughts, or seek clarification on anything covered. And to kick things off, we'll be using the Q&A box, the function, and encourage you to submit your questions through that feature. So we'll get started. And the first question that came in is from Axel Martinez. And Dr. Swarbrick, during your presentation, they asked if you can state again what you said about not saying change, but rather strengthen. And I believe it was around the wellness tools.
Yeah.
If you can share that, that'd be wonderful.
So the way the wellness model that we designed it was that you take so it's ABCs, my attitude, my balance, control. So you look at physical, spiritual, social, like we did. So what am I doing now? What do I give, acknowledging that? Maybe what do I want to strengthen or maybe improve? Then we might want to change something too. But I think with the wellness model, we want to just kind of keep our reminders around we're doing something and we strengthen it. Because what we found was when you want to improve, when you want to change something, brings in a whole lot of, you still want to work on that. And, you want treatment for changing and stuff. But with the wellness model, it's just a way of just being kinder to ourselves, acknowledging things that we don't always see. And so it's just a different approach than transforming something, which you can use the model in that way, but you want to start it off with acknowledging what you're doing and then strengthening what you're doing already. So I hope that's helpful to clarify that. But
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. We do have another question. This one comes from Paolo Del Vecchio, our director from Office of Recovery. And his question is, given the amount of money often drives care via diagnostics that are illness specific, how can funders support whole person, whole health approaches? And that's for any of our panelists.
well, I'll start it then if you want to go. I think one of the things they want to perhaps use the strength-based approach with helping a person manage this difficult, helping us to develop. I think sometimes we miss the boat on understanding what's going on, the physical, spiritual, social, intellectual thing has been mentioned too. Like we lose, because one of the things I didn't go into is it does align with a lot of the social determinant of health pieces that then brought up. So I think that funders should be taking a whole person approach. They say strength-based, but doing sort of a more thorough inventory of people's strengths might help them to help co-craft a better treatment plan that people may be more likely follow through with. So that's just one quick thought.
And I would just add to that, at least from the perspective of inside healthcare, if you're a funder and you're looking at where am I putting my money, and you look at how desperately bad a lot of our health outcomes are for some of the chronic conditions that people are dealing with, whether it's, you know, substance use issues, whether it's, you know, increasing suicide rates in the country, whether it's weight control or whatever it might be. There's a lot of evidence that investing up front in some of these more empowering and kind of person-centered approaches is really connected with better outcomes. I mean, you can look at other countries and see how when you invest more in things like post-incarceration services, for example, you know, you're going to see better outcomes. And so I think there's a lot of, it's more like just a shift in perspective. I think the evidence is really there for what kind of improved outcomes you can see if people are willing to entertain a different way of looking at it.
Great, excellent points. Thank you for sharing. So our next question comes from Matt Miller. His question is, I have a client who is a veteran struggling with alcohol addiction. Just wondering if you know any virtual veteran support groups.
Well, what I would say to that is, first of all, I hope that veterans engaged with the VA in some fashion. So if they haven't, I think there's just so much benefit to be had from people getting connected, whether it's into primary care or into some of the specific whole health programs or whatever it might be. I think there are so many online veteran aimed support groups. I think probably I wouldn't know where to start, really. What I will say is that, among other things, if the person isn't interested in engaging in VA, American Red Cross on their website has a great sort of resource database for veterans who are dealing with all kinds of different issues. And it's also distributed kind of by region and locality. And so you can kind of dive in there and look for that. I would put the link in the chat. I don't have it offhand, but that's one place you can go. And then in addition, other veteran service organizations often have either in-person or online resources for someone. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. We have one more question. This is from Anthony Jenkins, and he states, I often work with people who feel powerless to improve wellness in specific categories due to issues that are out of control, thinking about lacking financial wellness, but being unable to work. So what advice do you have to help people focus on meaningfully building up wellness through tools that are in their control?
I think for me, I really had to learn how to remain present. And I know when there's a lot of circumstances and things out of your control or hardships, it's hard to stay in the present moment and take things like literally a day at a time, as simple as that sounds. Not everything could be solved in a day. That was just if I had a person like that, I would just constantly just tell them to remain present during the situation and concentrate on what they can change today and not what they can change 2 or 3 days from now.
Excellent. Thank you, Ariel. Our next question comes from Sherry Bragg. And Sherry states, I believe one of the strengths of this model is that it isn't something providers apply to participants, but the 8 dimensions of wellness are things that impact all of our lives. So viewing it from this lens of equity and mutuality seems like a huge strength versus the old, you're broken, I can fix you model. But also seems contrary to typical care where the professional is the only expert versus this model where we are all experts on our own bodies and lives, and providers may bring their own expertise to the table. So can you expound on this, please? And I see your hand, Dr. Kluger.
I would like to suggest you make that person a presenter on your next webinar, because I think they pretty much just summed up what it is we've been trying to say. And I'll just comment, and then I'm sure my other fellow panelists have something to say on that. You know, in the VA, well, everywhere, for example, over the last few years, especially burnout in the healthcare professions has been a huge concern, whether it's in people that work with folks in recovery or people that do primary care, mental health, this whole issue of healthcare provider burnout. And one of the things we've realized in VA is that if you can engage with that partnership approach, where you're not the expert who's coming to fix the patient, but you are another person who's coming into the space with a person who happens to be your patient, and you're going to work on this together, that a lot of the burnout that healthcare providers experience is related to kind of the loneliness of having to be the expert and the only person who has the fix. And that once you get more engaged, levels of burnout go down. And it's a really powerful thing. And so I think, separate and apart from what this can do for the person we're working with, I think it's a really important kind of message to get to us as the healthcare community, that this is like the saving grace, to be honest, of being a primary care clinician, of being a substance use counselor, mental health person. Making that partnership happen is what's gonna, in the long run, just keep us healthy and well. So I think that's really, really important point.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, partnership. And Dr. Swarbrick?
Yeah, and I think one of the things to note in that is that this was developed by and for people in recovery as we developed the model, and it was a way of being like a self-directing and self-help. So thank you so much for that comment, because it really was the evolution of the model. And like I said, I shared about these coaches in New York City where they're bringing it to the young adults going involved in sports, who are many of them at risk. And it's a way to engage people. Don't want to go in and do a mental health 101 class with some of them, right? 101 mental health is going to turn people off, but talking about your wellness and engage. And that's one of the things that I found, was that talking about your wellness and approaching your wellness was much more people who maybe potentially needed some mental health or substance use resources could engage in this. But if you started just shoving down their throat that they take this test and that test and then labeling them, it turns people away. This is attraction. So it's nice in that way. It attracts people to it, and then people can own it and develop it for themselves.
Exactly. It's inspiring and accessible. Thank you. We don't have any other questions in the chat. Seeing if there's any additional questions. Okay, we did get another one from Dottie Nolan. How do you suggest using the wellness inventory? Who should participate in this, and how should you incorporate the results with the individual? I believe Dr. Swarbrick, that's...
Well, we've used it in all different ways. You can do it yourself, see how it is. And then if you want to introduce it to somebody you're working with, like you can send the link, share it to them before a time you meet with them or during it. So you can pace it at whatever would be acceptable to the person. You can go one by one people gone one by one in a session, not to overwhelm people. So, depending on, if you want to use this to introduce it to a person you're supporting, just talk a little bit about it and maybe do it together online, or we can get you a paper copy of it. You can print it out. You want to do it in a way that people feel like they can, doing it together, doing it apart. I think Ariel may have some other thoughts about it, but you want to tailor it to the person. But introducing it, we found that people have found it's helpful to come to a session with, to have information that they can highlight what they're doing well as a strength, and perhaps some areas they want some help to strengthen.
No, I definitely feel like it needs to be like a collaborative approach when it comes to even introducing it to people, because some people don't really have a bad idea about wellness, or they, but just explaining it, I usually try to break it down as much as I can. And like Peggy said, I might throw it out the first meeting, and I'll just it'll be very random. And I'll be like, well, what are you doing for your emotional wellness? And I won't exactly go into it then and there, just to gauge like what they're feeling, what they expect. And then as I go on and meet them more and more, I kind of incorporate other things too. It's really more than just getting them to you know, today I will do this. I will do that, you know, just getting them in a routine and a habit of things, positive things for themselves and their wellness.
Thank you, Ariel. And as you were sharing, when you're presenting, the examples you gave were prompts also, like I could relate to, you know, the focusing on sleep, making sure my physical wellness is doing and keeping track of that. So that personal sharing kind of prompts also like someone else's opportunity to share.
And it's absolutely changed as well. Like what my wellness looked like in the beginning, you know, 5 years ago is not what my wellness looks like today. It's ever evolving and ever changing. And I could appreciate that because it evolves with me.
Exactly. Thank you. At this moment, we don't have any other questions.
The tool that I shared that said you needed an email to, that is a nice tool to walk through as well, for people. That has a lot of those prompts. It doesn't have an anchor like the inventory, but it's a nice, and again, I've seen it on people's websites. People, they link to it. It's been, a lot of people have found that tool to be really useful. So that's another prompt thing that you could introduce to people to sort of start to get people to, you know, just see where they're at and strengths, identify where they're strong and perhaps where they might want some support.
Excellent points. We have a question from Kristen Harper, our very own, with the Office of Recovery. Her question is, what is the one resource or tool that providers can easily implement immediately?
Well, the one
I have one.
Yeah.
Well, I have two actually. One would be to put into place that well-being sign question that I showed you. So it's really simple. Just what's most important to you in your life right now? How is it going over the last month? And what that says is what's most important to you is where we're going to focus our care, not what's most important to me. So that's one thing. We're trying to get everybody to use that. And then we have another tool called a personal health inventory, which is on our website. That's another very easy and accessible way to kind of get into this conversation. But I don't want to get in front of Peggy. I'm sure she has other tools that she would put there for the first line.
To use, I mean, yeah, the inventory thing that I shared, or just even showing the visual to people, just showing the visual itself helps people. Like that's what people find, that is something you can share. Some people post it up on walls, but it provides a positive image of, we're here to help your wellness, you know, not just your mental health or to help you. So just sharing the vision of it or the images of it could be one way to just start right away. And then doing it for yourself. I encourage us, because again, in providers, it helps us with our own self-care. So, you know, when we're doing when we're attending to our own wellness, it's going to help us to do that with people that we support.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Maybe they'll pop up soon. And if not, are there other points that you all would like to share? I see David's hand. Welcome, David.
Hey, thank you, Katara. Great job, everyone. That was super awesome. And the timing is great because we're also at the Office of Recovery. We're working on a fact sheet on the intersection of physical activity, wellness, and recovery. And you know, there's a lot of data out there that shows that physical activity has just a tremendous impact on both the general wellness, but also some specific studies related to substance use and mental health recovery. And so I was wondering, do you all have kind of like a go-to resource that you like to cite that really shows the impact or efficacy of physical activity in people's pathways of or to recovery?
I think there's been a couple studies recently that have been showing that really strong. I can send over some references on it, but from a practical on the street perspective, it's been like that. That's what people say, whether it's mental health or addiction recovery, like there's so much benefit to having a physical thing you do in your day-to-day, during your day-to-day that helps to recalibrate your body and your mind and your, and then keeps you on that path, whether it's dealing with a mental health or dealing with something related to an addiction. I think it has such a positive effect when people do something doesn't have to be a marathon. When they're doing something physically with their body, there's just from the street perspective, I think it's really a powerful evidence. And then, like I said, I was going to send some references because there's definitely evidence around this now.
That'd be amazing. Thank you, Peggy.
Mhm. Thank you, David, for your question. We do have another question from our director, Paolo Del Vecchio. Are there unique aspects of promoting wellness, whole health among different cultural, gender, or other groups, including youth or older adults?
My suggestion is go in with the framework and then let it be and then that's why I try to not make a dictating, you have to do X, Y, Z, you have to bring it to your own personal. So I think, we've developed some cultural variations, but I think if you're doing the more and more, you work with youth or young adults, older adults, there's so many nuances that need to be adjusted and adapted. So if you're using it with different groups, it's not like you can't. I think it's just being mindful that it lands differently and it's perceived differently for so many different factors culturally, when we think of across the lifespan. And I think that's the coolest thing that I'm seeing it being developed and evolving in so many different ways with youth and young adults and other different populations. So I encourage people to just, embrace it. But then if you get the feedback with and by the group that you're working with.
Thank you, Dr. Schwarberg. Our next question comes from Axel Martinez. Axel states, considering the evolution of the 8 dimensions of wellness model from its origins in behavioral health care to its broader applications across various populations, how do you envision this model influencing future public health policies and practices, particularly in areas not traditionally associated with wellness, such as technology? I say this to ask if tech would be a new category or if it fits into one of the existing pillars. Great question.
Yeah, I don't know, in terms of technology, do we mean by a connection to technology or using it to further our wellness, I guess? I think it could be both ways, like furthering your wellness through technology and then how technology can expand it. I think there's a lot of efforts to do things with apps and AI applications and things that can help. Those are just 2 things that pop off the top of my head with that, but it definitely, there's people that came to me and say, we need a technology or a virtual dimension. So I add it, make a 9th dimension if people feel that they want to really hone in on that virtual component in that kind of a way. I would encourage, because it does affect our lives in so many ways.
Yeah, so the factor of customizable, if that fits, then add that piece. I like that.
Yeah. And then AI solutions with it are there's unlimited opportunities to help it to expand it for people and different. And I have a funny story that not too long ago, I don't know if SAMHSA, they cited me and SAMHSA in a Costco magazine that went out for, I usually put a slide of that on when they were talking about health, talk about bringing it to the masses. So yeah, a colleague of mine gets the Costco magazine and they had a citation of the 8 dimensions and mentioned my name, mentioned SAMHSA's name, had some links there. I was just laughing when I saw that, but I saw, wow, it's going to many people. It's sharing. And I think from a prevention perspective, that's a really interesting thing to see.
That is, I have a Costco membership. I'm gonna have to look up that magazine. Okay. And well, I don't see any other questions, but just want to thank everyone for their wonderful questions and contributions, of course, to our panelists. It's evident that the 8 dimensions of wellness play a crucial role in mental health and substance use recovery in all our lives, and appreciate everyone's sharing your experiences, your work, your wisdom. And if you have any questions after today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via email. And I'm going to pass this on to my colleague, Julie. And again, thank you all for participating, and hopefully you all feel inspired as I do to enhance our wellness.
Thank you, Katara, and thank you again to our amazing presenters and to all of our attendees for being here. Donna, my colleague, has dropped a feedback survey link, so we'd love to hear from you so that we can learn how we can continue to offer resources and topics that are of interest to you all. So please do take a moment to fill that out. And it looks like we'll let you go early, so you'll have even more time to complete your feedback survey. So thank you in advance.
You can take it for your wellness.
Exactly. Yeah, you could start with your wellness assessment as well. And if you are free on Thursday, just another plug for our Walk for Recovery happening in DC. We have a link to register if you're in the area, and if you can't join us, as Paula mentioned, we will be live streaming it through that second link. So we'd love to see you there so that we can celebrate all the progress we've all made together in advancing recovery. And with that, I just want to thank everyone again. Thank Paolo for your opening remarks, and wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your day.